Well, good morning, everybody. Great to see you. Everybody shout out courage. How about just the ladies in that sweet, in that sweet feminine way, just say it as best you can. Say courage. Oh, wasn't that sweet? How about all the guys, a little baritone? How about shout it out, guys? Courage. All right. Guys, you just signed up. On March 24, the last Saturday of this month, we're having, first in a long time, all the men in the church coming together. And a special guest speaker, Dr. Michael Maiden, who will be here throughout the weekend, becoming one of our best friends, one of our favorite guest speakers in City Church. Phenomenal man. You don't want to miss. So moms, sisters, daughters, friends, grab the guy's phone next to you and put in his calendar, March 24th, Saturday, 8 a.m. breakfast, interaction time, great speaking. You don't want to miss it. Everybody say, I got it. Speaking of courage, you know it takes a lot of courage to follow God sometimes, doesn't it? I mean, to step up to the plate, and decide you're going to obey God and follow God wherever He leads. Takes courage. I remember years ago, I was in Bible college training to do this. And there was a renowned preacher who was super popular at the time. And he was coming to the city in Florida where I was going to college. And all of us students, as Bible students, man, we were jazzed. We were so excited about this guy coming. Big arena, there'd be thousands and thousands of people there. Of course, I was there. It was just as awesome as we expected. Phenomenal worship, incredible message, and we're kind of tons of people up front at the end, and then it shifted. He felt spontaneously, this speaker, that he should take up an offering from this huge crowd for a specific kind of a missions outreach, something that had just happened in the world or something like a catastrophe, and we're going to give. And I'm thinking, yeah, you guys should give. You guys, I'm a Bible college student. We're kind of exempt. We're poor. And we're training for the ministry. We're the next to be on the stage like this guy. We're next. So you guys need to take care of that and pay for that. I'm kind of just, the thought was there. And I'm ignoring the plea. I'm in neutral. And suddenly I feel this tug in my heart. What do you have in your wallet? Well, it's not hard to know. I only had one thing in it. It was a $20 bill. And that was to last me for a week. I truly was a poor college student, and that would be my food. I mean, for heaven's sakes, my favorite breakfast place for 3 eggs, grits, and biscuits and coffee was 99 cents. It's cost a lot of money. And gas, oh my gosh, it's almost 30 cents a gallon. It's ridiculous. And $20, I mean, come on, how am I going to make it? And I'm having this very short, really, conversation with God, a little wrestling match over taking courage to give what I know God's speaking to me to give. This was not an offering for them to give. It was an offering for me to give. In fact, it was almost if I just zoned out where I was and who was there. It was like I was having this little me and God moment. Did I have the courage to give everything I had to God, believing it would work? Well, I did. You're proud of me? I did that, okay? I gave the 20. And I don't know, I ate. I mean, I'm here. I ate food. I don't know what happened. I don't remember the immediate results. In fact, it was some time later, I remember, maybe even 2 years later. It wasn't a week later. See, with God, there's no time. For him, it was a second later. Though for me, it was like 2 years later. I'm in a different city, and I'm working, and I'm in sales. And God began to bless me profoundly. This was in the 70s. I was making $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. Most of my friends and I lived on like $1,000, $1,200 a month. I mean, I was just, where'd all this money come from? I came out of a house, and I just made like $1,000. I sit in my little white truck, my Datsun, and I'm crying. God, what are you doing to me? I mean, I'm thankful, but man, what's going on? And just bam, I went back 2 years before in that stadium, and God reminded me of the giving. And I just clearly in that moment in my truck, I just heard the whisper of God in my heart saying, I haven't forgotten what you did. You see, when you take courage in any way to follow God, you're setting yourself up for miracles, for blessings, for divine appointments, for a connection that could not have come any other way. The email is going to come, the text is going to come, you're going to be called into someone's office, something's going to change when you, and not just money, but blessings, incredible favor, healings will come when we put God first. Put God, everybody shout out, put God first. Yeah, putting God first, yeah, I admit, sometimes it is a struggle and doesn't always make sense, but it always leads to blessing. Now, today, it's commonly known as 2 or 3 subjects you just don't speak on in church. Sex makes people a little uncomfortable. Although they like talking about it, it's a little uncomfortable in church. Politics can get messy because we have different opinions. And the third one is money. Because people they feel uncomfortable like you're after their money. But you know, for me, I love talking about money. I like money. I don't love it. I like it. I like handling it. I like being a good steward over it. I like seeing people blessed. One of my favorite things to do is to see people who trust God have their life blessed financially. I get so jazzed over that. So I don't think it's wrong. In fact, I think it's so appropriate. A great portion of the Bible, in many instances, talks about stewardship, handling money, using money, don't abuse money. So many things about this thing we hold so dear, our bank account. So today I want to talk to you boldly. I don't hold back at all. I'm smiling. I love this subject, and I think I'm going to bring something to us that's really going to help us about putting God first in our personal finances. One of the ways we do that, the Bible describes it as tithing. Tithe, T-I-T-H-E, tithing. I talked a little bit about this last week, but I want to do it again this week, and I feel like it's such a clear and wonderful message for our church, and I want to go there right now. I want to give you 4 real clear and simple points, just 4. And you know, some of you, if this is new to you or you don't quite understand, maybe take some notes, lean into this, and see what it means to you personally. 4 points regarding this subject of putting God first in our finances, tithing. First point is tithing teaches us. Tithing's a teacher. It teaches us to put God first. It's like a reminder. In fact, the scripture says it explicitly. You can't get any clearer. Deuteronomy chapter 14. The purpose of tithing is to teach you always to put God first in your lives. Let me take a brief moment because some of us don't know this. The word tithe means tenth or 10%. In the Bible, the study of numbers is significant. The purpose of a number being mentioned, like 3 is the Trinity, God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. 7, the number 7 you see a lot, is the number of completion or maturity or perfection. 8, the number 8 is the number of new beginnings because there's 7 days in the week. Jesus rose not on the 7th day, the Sabbath. He rose on Sunday, the first day, which is the 8th day. So the number 8 is very significant. The number 10. The number 10 in the Bible is always associated with testing. Testing. The 10 plagues in Egypt, it says God tested Pharaoh's heart with these 10 plagues. 10 times the Israelites were tested in the wilderness. Daniel went through this 10-day test. Revelation talks about a 10-day test. There are 10 virgins that were tested to see if they would still have oil in their lamp when the bridegroom came. On and on and on it goes. It's no coincidence that God didn't choose 3 for the Trinity or 12 for the apostles. He chose 10. A tenth is the test. So here's the thing. Are you with it? Are you with me? Everybody who's tuned in, say I'm here. Okay, hang in there with this. Is really good stuff. So here's the point. Every time that I increase financially, it's a test. Whether it's my normal salary or a bonus or I sell something or someone gives me something, whenever there's an increase, no matter what it is, when the increase comes, it's a test of my heart. Because if I say I'm a follower of Jesus, one of the tremendous, profound indicators of that being true is where my finances go. Jesus said, you cannot serve God, and money. He said, where your treasure is, your heart will be also. It's a heart issue. In fact, so much so that God, when He's shaping this people group called Israel. He's shaping them from a group of people into a literal nation. He's doing that with the leadership of Moses. They leave Egypt, they're going to the promised land. That's the beginning of the shaping of this people into a nation. And he gives them laws to live by, the 10 Commandments. He gives them ceremonial laws about marriage and intimacy and children. So many laws. And in that context, he deals with finances and gives them laws of not using too much interest and how to give to people. And then he brings the core focus of their economy in that Old Testament story was this concept of tithing. Whenever you increase, bring the first fruits to God. Whenever you increase with animals out in the field, bring the firstborn, they're holy, they belong to God. It was always a test. So he gave them all these points of God first with your resources. Toward the end of their journey, Moses is rewriting to them and telling them some laws, and he says, I want you to catch this, he's kind of giving them a little bit of a warning from God, which I believe God would be saying to us today. Deuteronomy chapter 8, beware that in your plenty you do not forget the Lord your God and disobey his commands. For when you've become full and prosperous in San Diego, have fine homes to live in, when your 401k and your other investments have become very large and your silver and gold have multiplied along with everything else, comma. See, God's basically saying, this is how I want you to live. I want you to be blessed, comma, be careful. This is how I want you to be blessed. Have your home, have your increase. I want my people blessed, comma, be careful. Be careful. Do not become proud at that time and forget the Lord your God who rescued you from slavery. Anybody here been rescued by God? Oh, God, I feel like I've been rescued. Not just when I became a Christian, but so many times delivered me from wrong thinking and different bondages that Satan wants to bring on us. Remember, he's the one who rescued you from slavery. He did all this so you would never say to yourself, I've achieved this wealth with my own strength and my energy. Then the capstone statement is, everybody shout out, remember. Remember the Lord your God. He is the one who gives you power to be successful. Other translations say the power to get wealth. He gave you that human capacity. And the key word, remember, don't forget. Now, the word remember means to recall. We know what remember means, but it means in this context, recall with a focus of responding, with an action attached. And they knew what that meant. When there's plenty, don't forget, remember God first with your finances. Because the purpose of tithing is to teach us to put God first in our lives. God doesn't need our money, but he surely does want our heart. And when we give him our finances, he gets our heart. It just works. I'm telling you, it just works. Somebody say, yeah. Yeah, when Tammy gets the stuff, when I buy her stuff, she gets my heart. That's why I do it, because she has my heart. Sometimes I think, oh, yeah, okay, you got my heart. Let's do it anyway. Yeah, that's what happens. Where your treasure is, your heart will be also. I don't think it's ever been easier to put God first with our finances, to be honest with you, because of technology. You can set it up in your banking, and you're not tempted to spend it. The first part goes to God. So I don't take my, say I got $1,000, and I pay the mortgage and all these things, and if there's anything left over, God, he's saying first. The concept of tithe is first. Put God first. So the first thing I do is take if I had 1,000, I give the 100. And since banking's so easy, I just set it up so it just, boop, it goes. I'm notified so I can rejoice that I gave it to God, so I want to remember that moment. I get my email or my text, but that way I don't have to wait. It's so easy. But it's never been easier to forget God in the plenty. Because we live in such an affluent world, and God has blessed us extravagantly. Even those with the greatest needs among us this morning are wealthy. We live in a very affluent world, and God has blessed us abundantly. And the word on this is don't forget. And the way we don't forget is by putting him first. That's the first point. Number 2, tithing is returning what belongs to God. Look at this verse. I'll give you 2. Leviticus 27. A tithe of what? Follow me. A tithe, oh, you don't see it yet. A tithe of everything from the land, whether grain from the soil, fruit from the trees, belongs to the Lord. It is holy. What God is saying is, when we come to God and we surrender our whole life to Him, so I make my $1,000 for the month, He's saying that 100 belongs to Him. So I'm not really giving it, I'm returning it. So it's giving. I'm just playing on the thought here for the point that I'm just releasing back to God what He claimed was already His. And He took this principle. Whenever the firstborn male comes to an animal you have, the first one, it belongs to me. The first fruits from your crops when you're reaping, the first bushels, bring it to me. The first part of your increase, return it. Bring it. In fact, it says the same thing in Malachi 3, the famous tithing passage. It says, bring all the tithe to the storehouse. It's not give it, but bring it. And that's a play on words because there's confusion sometimes over the tithing thing and how much do I give and how does it work? Well, how much do I give to God? It's clear, 10%. When do I give it? Every time I increase. Now, I remember back, I didn't become a pastor until I was in my 40s, so I had a couple career pursuits, and there were a number of years I was a businessman, and I developed about 5 small residential subdivisions, bought the land, got it approved, and built subdivisions in the state of Oregon. And the first one I did it with a partner, and we were very underfunded, and it was a real step of faith, and we made it, and we both built homes in this beautiful subdivision. I named it after my first son who passed away. It's still named Jamie Estates in Portland. It's the first thing we did in business. And we're living well and prospering, but I'd never gotten any big payday. And at that time, this is so long ago, at that time, Tammy and I and our family, most of our friends, we were living on $2,000, $3,500 a month range. That would be pretty comfortable living. So we weren't living high, but we had a beautiful new home. We were living well. And suddenly I get the first payday. I get a $30,000 check. First time it ever happened to me from a closing on one of the properties. Man, just wrote me a check for $300,000. I thought, wow, this has never happened. This is amazing. What am I going to do with this? I thought, okay, I'm going to take the tithe. I don't know where my mind went. And I'm going to give it to that person I know that has that need. And I'm going to give to that. I got a missionary friend who's living now in Mexico. And I'm so excited as a young businessman. I'm prospering. I'm going to just write a bunch of checks from the tithe and this thing. And I thought I did a great thing. And about a week later, I get that little pull. What's going on? What's wrong? I feel funny. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Kind of a little God moment, like something's not right. And I'm praying, and I instantly, I realize I didn't give the tithe to the church. I didn't return it to God. Wait a second. What did I do? And I got convicted, and I talked to Tammy about it. Well, then write another check. So I went back to and wrote another check for $3,000 and gave it where I believe the Bible teaches to my church. I'm returning it to God in His house. In fact, that brings me to the third point, which is, I love this, when tithing resources God's church. Malachi 3:10, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, God says. My house, and I want food in it. My house, I want resources in it. My house, I don't want it to be limited. If you understand the concept of the storehouse or the temple or the tabernacle, all those words that are used in the Old Testament, they are a prophetic picture or a typology of what we do now in New Testament Christianity. Whenever it mentions those, it's talking about the local church, what you're sitting in right now. This is God's heart. If you want to be close to God, be close to a church. This is the heartbeat of God. This is the hope of the world. Jesus said, I will build my church. This is God's focus on the earth. So the whole focus of the tithing in the Old Testament was to bring it to the temple. And here, and in fact, the way they would do it in the Old Testament, they would bring their animal or their fruit or their increase of finances, and they would bring it to the temple, and they would lay it around the altar, so to speak, and they'd walk away. It's holy. It's holy. It's not mine. I don't get to do it. No, it's God. In the New Testament, there's a similar concept. There were times where people sold lands, made profits, had money, and they would bring it to the leadership of the church and just lay it down and walk away. There wasn't a sense of I'm in charge. And that's a big struggle for some people. But I'm here to tell you that the plan that God has on earth is His church. And He's saying, bring all of this test of your heart, every time you increase, bring it to the local church, God's house. Bring it to the house of God. Bring it. Bring it. It's a cool thing. Now, there's some common misconceptions about that. One like I had before. A lot of people who say, I'm tithing and I'm giving to this person that's in need, and I'm giving my tithe over here. In all due respect, I'm a literalist. I'm not legalistic. This is not law to me, legalism. It's life to me. But I am a literalist. I believe what the Word says. So I bring all of the tithe to the house, to the church. That's tithing. Giving is when I want to help a person in need, or help a missionary friend, or help an organization that's really wonderful, or even Christian-based. That's giving. There's a difference between tithes and offerings. And I just wanted to clear up that misconception. And the second misconception is okay, I bring this tenth, this tithe, to my local church. I'm kind of burdened for the youth, so I want half of it to go there, and I want some of it to go over here. And you guys, again, the control thing. The concept of the tithe is I bring it and I lay it down. We've had people in recent years, because there's a lot of pressure on all of us financially. No matter how much you make, it seems like it's never enough. Anybody say yeah? Doesn't matter how much. You've got bigger things to do. Always a need for more. And that's the world we live in. And often there'll be a special offering. Like last year, we took up an offering to help with some of the victims of the hurricane. And we gave very generously here. I think we gave about, a little under $10,000 that we just shipped food, and we blessed and we gave. We helped rebuild a church that was just wrecked in Florida. In that same month that we gave that offering, the tithing dropped down significantly because of misconceptions about offerings and tithing. Now, I'm telling you not what I want you to do. I'm telling you what we do. What all of our team, Tammy and I have, in the last 4 years, have given the most we've ever given in our lives. I won't tell you how much. That would be weird, but it was a lot. We gave a huge amount beyond, way beyond 10%. Because we want to be an example. We felt God asked us to do that. And so tithing is just like entry. That's just starting point. That's what God asks us for. Offerings are this incredible opportunity to live a generous life and act like God and meet needs and pour out to people and help where we can be a help. But resourcing God's house is a big deal. I want to pause here. I wish I had a half hour on this one point. Tithing resources God's house. I just feel that tithing, for me, in a broad sense, it teaches us to honor church, respect it, value it. We all get busy, and there's so much to do. And parents, I know you're struggling, but I want to encourage you. I've heard parents a little bit in recent years say, well, my kids are not wanting to come to church right now. I just don't want to force them. Well, no, you don't want to, bring them here with their arm behind their back. And force maybe is a strong word. But the way Tammy and I raised our boys, there were seasons when pre-teen, when the hormones kicked in, they had attitudes. And I remember them kind of resisting, I don't want to go. And I remember having talks, hey, look, here's the deal. The clothes you're wearing, we bought them. The food you're going to eat today, I'm considering buying. We will bless you. We'll spoil you. We'll love you. We'll help you get an education. We'll help you in your future. We will never stop loving you and blessing you. But as long as you're in this house, we're going to value God's house. We're going. In today's world, there's so many interruptions, and I don't condemn you, but please, hear my heart. You do not want to face God in eternity. We give an account for what we've done and say, well, I did everything I could to give my kids an education, or to make sure they played 15 sports a week, or to have designer jeans. Have all that, because my kids did and still do, and I think God wants us to live well. But don't, please hear my heart. If you want to raise champion kids, they're following your example. You value the house of God. You come here early. You find a way to give back and serve. And when it comes to tithing, let them know you do that. In our house, I remember the first time I did it with our boys when they were old enough to understand, maybe 8, 9, 10. One morning, I remember going to church, and at the time, our tithe was $300. We were making $3,000. This is a long time ago. And I remember holding the check for $300 written out, and I said, hey, boys, we're going to church today. This is what we give God, our tithe. And they understood money, and they went, you giving that much to the church? Why? So, little teaching moment. Because in our house, we love God's house. And I do not want, teach them tithing, I do not want to keep in my house what belongs in God's house. They've been tithers ever since. Little God moment to teach. In fact, I heard the story this week of a family who had, the mom and dad had been at church years before, but they hadn't been. Now they have one son, and they decided they better go to church. First time in a long, long time for them, first time ever for the boy. And he's old enough to know what's going on and pick up. Very, very observant young man. They go to church, and he really adored his dad. So he's watching his dad stand and try to sing the songs, and he's watching his dad twitch a little bit and roll his eyes, and he's watching his dad and kind of follow. Whatever dad did, he was kind of doing. He's maybe 10 or 11. And the offering plate comes by, and his dad kind of squirms a little bit and pulls out his wallet and thumbs through all the bills and pulls out a $1 bill and drops it in, and the son's observing everything. So service is over, and they make a beeline, get in the car. As soon as they get in the car, they're driving out of the parking lot, and the dad starts complaining. Oh, my gosh, that worship was too loud. That sermon was too long. It was too hot in there. Those announcements were ridiculously confusing. The people were unfriendly. He criticized everything. Then there was a pause. And the son says, well, Dad, you got to admit, it wasn't a bad show for $1. Supposed to be funny. Come on, lighten up. It's okay. You know, honestly, the model that we live, I'm not speaking on family, but I feel like I'm supposed to this morning. The model that we live hugely impacts our children, leaves a legacy. And I just hear God challenging us to put our money where our heart is and put our heart where God is. Where your treasures, your heart will be. Put Him first. It's powerful. It's life-changing. Food in the house. In fact, let's talk. He says, bring all of your tithe to the storehouse, to the house of God. So there'll be food or bread in my house. So the church is properly resourced. And here in our church, about 23-25% of the people who regularly attend are giving consistently, a consistent percentage, the tithing concept, and they fund everything that we do. All the staff, the facilities, children's, youth, women's, men's ministries, events, guest speakers, all of these things, and so much, much, much more is funded by the generosity of a group of people in the church. But I want to tell you something. We are at a time now greater than ever before. We've paid our dues as a church. We've been here almost 20 years. So the opportunities available to us are growing. And there's a church, a friend of mine I've known for many years. He and his wife, Rod and Twyla, have an incredible outreach in the Dominican Republic. A church, an orphanage, a school is amazing. They need our help, and they're asking in a very humble way. I want to bring them here. We don't have the funds to bring them here. Not enough food in the house. We have friends we're helping support in Brazil, a young new leader who has legacy on him. He's going to be a phenomenal leader, Gabriel. His family's been here once, but we want to bring him here. But bread in the house. Phenomenal open door. I told you last week, a friend of mine who started a church in Mexico, now it's thousands, God opened the door for him in Cuba. It's illegal. You can't start churches in Cuba, but you can buy a house and start a church. They found a loophole, and the government's turning their eyes the other way. So he has now taken money into Cuba, bought small homes, found the pastor who's hungry for God, and started 50 churches. Wow. And he's saying, Jerry, bring some money from City Church San Diego. We'll leave some legacy for your church in Cuba. I'm being honest with you. I'm not playing with your emotions. If you think I am, please forgive me. That's not my heart. I'm trying to bring us to the literal interpretation. We want to get into good theology. We want to dig in as a theologian church. What does it mean, food in my house? It means all that we need to do what God's called us to do. We cannot go to Cuba because we don't have the money. The biggest one to me is right here in our region. We've sown into all the schools in the area so much. For 15 years, we've taken money, we've taken food, we've helped students start clubs, and we've seen hundreds of you. Some of you are sitting here because your kids were saved in that campus club and you came to follow them. One of the greatest ways our church has grown is from students in the schools who come here and get their life rocked for God and say, Mom and Dad, you've got to come check this out. All the time. Last week alone, 3 campuses, RB, Mount Carmel, and Del Norte. What you have to do, it has to be student-led, and we respect the rules. We don't do anything. We try to be honorable. We know the principles. We bring them gifts. We serve the school, and we paid our dues. We're a generous church. We're not there to try to get people converted and be mean. We're there to serve and be a blessing. We bring food. We're honoring and giving, and it's paid off. They trust us. So you have to have a student lead this club and a teacher sponsor it, and you get a room. Last week, the 3 rooms were jammed. Students are standing in the hallway. Almost 300 students come into clubs. There's doors open for more schools, but I'm here to talk with you today. We don't have the food in the house. We just met this week talking to Gabe and Gabby, and they're saying, we've got to have more food. We've got to have more schools. The doors are open. And I'm thinking, where do we take it? And we had this budget discussion, and I'm thinking, good thing I'm speaking on tithing this weekend. Because every time we do, I know what happens. Every year, last year, a year ago, we only do this once every year, and sometimes once every 2-3 years, because we're not trying to manipulate or just blow the trumpet on one topic. But when we get here, we want to camp here. We want to make sure we're all on the same page. We did this last year. We taught on this, and our tithing was at an all-time high for 20 years, for 2 months. Whoop, bam. So we were trying to ramp up the budget and go out and do things, and all of a sudden, we had to slam everything we ramped up to a halt, because that was us. God, no, don't want you to think I'm not mad at you. I'm not being mean. My heart's talking to you. This is the heart talk. Money is the heart. It's not us saying give it. God is saying if you just trust Him with your heart, do you know you're setting yourself up and your church up for an astronomical miracle? What could we do? What more can we? We need to hire more. I could go on and on. We need to do things in the facility to get ready for more people. And Easter's coming, and we're literally, I'm being honest with you, because we always end the year in the black. Always. And we have $100,000 in contingency and savings because we're trying to be wise. That's not a lot, but at least we have that. We hold that holy. And we watch the budget. We are careful with it the very, very best we can. Our staff does a great job. But sometimes it's just constantly juggling, and it was better 5 to 7 years ago. There was more margin. We could do more things. The economy's changed, and some of you had shifts in your job. What I'm here to do today is not to pressure you, but to welcome you into the world of the supernatural. When you step across the line and trusting to build God's house, He'll build your house. In fact, my 4th point, and I should be done now, but I'm going to go forth anyway. Here we go. Tithing builds your faith in God. Malachi 3 again, bring all the tithes of the storehouse. If you do, I will open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing so great you won't have room enough to take it in. Then God gets audacious and says, why don't you just try it? Just try it and let me prove it. It. What's the it? Let me prove it to you. The it is my house will be resourced and I will bless you. Let me prove it to you. That when you put God first with your resources, you're setting yourself up for, here's the faith in it. Do we really believe that if I've got $1,000 and 100 belongs to God, according to this, do I really believe that the 900 left over, do I have faith? Tithing releases my faith. Do I have faith to believe that the 900 will be better than 100 by myself? That's the faith test. Try it. Let me prove it to you that the 900 with me on it is better. It reminds me of the story. It reminds me of the story. Jesus is teaching on a hillside, and there's thousands of people, and they're out of time, and there's no place to eat, and they found one boy had a lunch, 5 pieces of bread and 2 fish. And Jesus said, bring it to me. Same language as this, bring it to me. Then it says, He blessed it. He cannot bless what He cannot touch. Are you hearing me? He cannot bless what He cannot touch. Bring it to me. He took the loaves and He blessed them and then broke them, and they went into the 4th dimension, and He just kept distributing, and they went into this unknown world, and it just kept going, and suddenly 20,000 people all ate from one boy's lunch, and the boy got to eat, and there were 12 huge baskets full left over. Here's the point. It takes faith to give the little that you have. But the little you have, if it's blessed by Him, you're setting yourself up for the supernatural. It takes courage to do that. It takes faith to do that. And that's what it's all about. When you put Him first, you never know what God's going to do. Everybody said amen. Amen. Let me pray for you. Bow your head. Jesus, thank you for thank you for speaking to us today real clear. And I'm just praying as a pastor of this church, God, I pray that no one would feel pressured here. If people are not comfortable with this message, please keep coming. That's okay. You don't have to do this. We're inviting you to do it. Please keep coming back to church. This is a good place, and you'll grow in your faith. We're inviting you to join us in this journey. And no pressure, no pressure. If you feel pressured to do it, then don't do it. Got to come from the heart. God, I just pray you'd speak to us clearly today, and we would put you first in every area of our lives. Keep your heads bowed. You know, we talk about God blesses what we give Him. Some of you in this room need to give Him your whole life. If you're trying to do life on your terms, it's not going to get that blessing on it. What I'm talking about is surrendering your life, becoming a Christian, asking God to forgive you, asking God to work in your life supernaturally. I'd like to lead you in a prayer so you can become that kind of person right where you're seated, right in the convenience of your nice, soft, cushy chair. You can come to know God, and He can bless your life. If you want to pray that prayer with me, could you just lift your hand and say, that's me, Pastor. I want to make things right with me and God. Oh, come on. Yeah, I love it. Come on. Hands popping up. A few more people. Pastor, I want to pray. I want to give God my whole life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, I love this. Love it. Yes, in the back. Oh, two more. God bless you guys. This is amazing. Amazing, amazing. Amen. You can put your hands down. I want us all to pray, church. All out loud together. Say Jesus really loud. Jesus. Say, everybody, I give you my whole life. Everything. I need your help. Would you forgive me? I want to do things your way. I want to follow you. I want my life blessed here on earth, and I want eternal life. Receive me today, I pray. In Jesus' name. Everybody said amen. Come on, let's celebrate with everyone who raised their hands and prayed. Awesome. That's the best. The best gift you can ever give God is your whole heart. Tithing is just one of the ways we demonstrate He has our heart. And if you prayed that prayer, we'd like to encourage you to take the next step here at the City Church. That's Grow Track. And it's a great way for you to get to know God better, and you'll hear more about that later. As a way to respond to this message really quickly, and I'm done. As a way to respond to this message, we did it last week. If you're leaning in and saying, Pastor, I'd like to hear more about this tithing. I'd like this to be my home church, and I want to bring my finances here. If you'd let me know by texting 97,000 and just type God first, no space, God first, 97,000. I think over 70 families did last week, and they're already jumping on board. And I'm thrilled about what that means to our future. We're putting God first. If you haven't already done it, and you'd be willing to even consider it, we'll send you some information, answer any questions you have to help out. We just want to be practical about this phenomenal life-giving principle. So if you can do that, that'd be awesome. And would you watch this video? It tells the story very well.
I'm Ramona Jones. We have been coming, Sam and myself and our whole family have been coming to the City Church for the past 12 years. We first started tithing when we started going to church regularly. And it was about 25 years ago. But I would call ourselves the sporadic tithers. We would tithe when we felt like it, or if we thought we had, enough. There wasn't any teaching so much on tithing back then, so we didn't really know how to properly tithe. Sometimes we would just, help our friends out and think that we were tithing by, helping someone pay their rent or buy their groceries. We had tried to do things leaning on our own understanding. We were not trusting God when it came to giving that 10%. The first time that we began to start tithing regularly and intently was when we started going to the city church, which was about 12 years ago. Pastor Jerry had a sermon about tithing, and it literally, a light bulb just clicked in our hearts. And Sam and I were on the same page. We had young kids, we had an enormous amount of bills, we had debt, and having to give that 10% seemed like a huge sacrifice at the beginning. But we decided, we had made a commitment, we were just going to do it, and our lives began to change. We started to have so much favor, unexpected blessings, and that has just changed our lives, and then we've been committed to doing that for the past 12 years and just seen God move mightily on our behalf. We wanted to do what was right. When we heard the truth, it was, there was no going back. You can never outgive God, and your obedience is always rewarded. He's always faithful. Just keep doing it. Just be faithful and keep tithing and keep believing, and God will work on your behalf.
All right. You can clap. That's Ramona did such an amazing job on that video. We're actually going to respond to the message and have opportunity to give. And we don't preach on this every Sunday. We actually rarely do, but we do put God first every Sunday and have an opportunity to respond in generosity to Him. And my life, like Ramona's, has been really changed by putting God first with our finances, with prosperity and protection over our lives, and really peace in our lives. And so we're going to just respond today. We don't do this at the end of the message to manipulate you in any way. Like Pastor Jerry said, we want everybody to give with a cheerful heart this morning, and so we invite you to do that. There's 3 ways that you can give. You can text Giving SD to 97,000. You can use the envelope in the seat pocket in front of you, or you can give at the kiosk in the lobby on the way out. I actually asked Caleb, our creative director, after last service, I said, that's such an amazing video, and he goes, I really just asked Ramona one question, and then she just shared from her heart. And that whole video is almost one take, because she was just speaking from an overflow of a heart that has been generous to God for over 12 years. And so thank you guys for giving this morning. We're going to show you a couple more things coming up at the City Church.
Everything I No moment is wasted. This is living.